Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Joining me today in DGI-427 is my co-host Sridhar Chityalaji. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel.
Namaskara, good morning to everybody, and happy to be here on this wonderful Saturday.
Sir, a lot of stuff happening. Let us start with what's happening with the upcoming or the ongoing visit of the Taiwan President Tsai in United States. She came to LA, she met with the House Majority Leader, and then she has been meeting with various political personalities. In the meantime, China has been rattling its saber one more time. It's been flying 40 plus planes across the median line separating China from Taiwan Strait. Is this another saber rattling exercise, or is there more intent behind this one?
No, there's much more than saber rattling. I think there's a clear message. There's one other additional data point. Representative Mike McCall was in Taipei on Thursday, endorsing his support as the Taiwanese president landed. He made a very important statement, which is from there with a few other House representatives who are part of the House Foreign Relations Committee. The statement says that if push comes to shove, we have to defend. We are prepared to go to war with China to defend Taiwan, but that's not an option we would like to pursue. But if that's the only option left, we will pursue that after discussing with Congress and the American people. It's a very profound and important statement from Taiwan and from Taipei on Thursday as the president returned and the saber rattling has started.
Sridharji, now let us take a quick look at what has been happening in Coco Islands. It's an island stream, just a swirl of islands just north of Andaman and Nicobar, and this is owned by Myanmar. However, it appears that a lot of Chinese construction has been seen there. Is that Chinese stuff, Chinese spying on Andaman Nicobar? India has finally caught up and now they have confronted Myanmar. Walk us through these things, sir. What really happened and what are the concerns that India has?
Well, there's been construction going on in Coco Island for a long time. But most recently, India has been observing. If you would like to know where Coco Island is, I think as Sriji pointed out, you can go to the map. It is in a very strategic location, 55 miles north of Andaman Nicobar. And if you carefully look at the map, it faces the Malacca Strait. Remember, Andaman Nicobar is where our naval submarine and India's naval footprint is. And India's responsibility was a blockade in the event that China entertains any aspirations. Right there, one could see the construction, more recently, the construction activity where even Chinese workers are present. It is believed that there's also some kind of surveillance and tracking center that is being built. This evidence was collected based on a US data that was given by a Matrix Corporation, which monitors this specific area. I know many times people ask the question, what happens to Indian satellites? What happens to Indian satellites? Why it's always US? We can answer the question, but the fact is that it is a US data. That data was given to the Indian authorities, and then Indian authorities confronted Myanmar in the month of January with this specific data. So obviously the intelligence comes out a little bit later. Recall we covered this in DGI. There's a Chinese balloon that went over the Andaman Nicobar Islands that was also brought up, and it just got smooshed away, or the information not responded appropriately. So there is a consistent pattern of spying going on around that specific area. Another strategic importance is the Oscus most recent submarine port is going to be diametrically, vertically down in the Western Australian Hamas Sterling port to provide logistical support if it is required across the Indian Ocean. So this is a very significant kind of a development as China prepares itself for very clearly a war and eliminating those areas that it believes is potential points of vulnerability.
Viewers, please don't again sell 10-cent comments that US cannot be trusted. Look, this is not something that is a fiction or an imagination. We are telling you that US has helped India, and the way the satellite imaging work is the satellites are set up for a particular latitude, longitude, and they can't really go too far off of that to go and look at something that is happening beyond that. So whatever it is, the point I'm trying to make here is there are three types of comments I've observed, Sridharji. One is really good comments of people who are genuine listeners. Second is deliberately putting bad comments to try and thinking that that will run down the reach and virality of the video. And the third one is messaging that we see often where cryptocurrency suddenly will come in and somebody will put a comment, four people will reply. All these things are some sort of third way of messaging. Some people are trying to do something with cryptocurrencies. We don't know exactly what it is. We usually try and take them down immediately because we don't want to be part of any of that nonsense. Just wanted to tell people, news is news, data is data, truth is truth. So look at it that way when you put your comment. Let's have a good intellectual discussion of back and forth rather than making shooting from the hip. It doesn't help anyone. Let's take a look at what is happening next in China. Sridharji, Biden, China revelations. Now, many more banks, not just Cathay Bank, have been named. Many marquee banks of United States also are involved. Walk us through these things, sir. Only the first of 11 transfers of 3 million has been unearthed thus far. What else is coming down the train?
Well, I think that you remember we covered again in DGI that the House Judiciary Committee is tracking the what we call as the red flags that was over a period of time flashed by the Treasury of the various governments. So they have now gone back 14 years. They're looking at 14 years data, and they're observing that there's number of transactions that all the things relate to Hunter Biden. And they're also able to connect some of this data to the famous or infamous, the Hunter Biden computer, some of the data within that computer. So the data has been sought from these banks, which list all the financial transactions which has originated from China, which seems to have flown into these families. It's not only flown from China, but obviously the energy conglomerate footprint in Europe and other places. So there's very clear kind of data that is coming out. Whether it will become evidentiary as they pursue these investigations. Wells Fargo still has not come. Remember, Wells Fargo got featured again. They had transactions about a year ago before the House transition to Republicans. So there's much more to come as far as the Hunter Biden is concerned, because House is now correctly or rightly in the hands of the opposite side of the administration.
Sir, let's take a look quickly at markets. I somehow skipped that. Gold has risen almost 10% in year to date. You said 9%, but I think 1750 was the lowest around December 2022. And today we are at 2023. So clearly 10% mark has been breached. Some people say gold can go up to $10,000. And some say no, it will be only at $3,000 announced by the end of this year. Give us a little bit of an idea. Now, there is a new definition for GSB, sir. This is GSB in India. Usually they say Gaut Saraswat Brahmins, gold, silver, Bitcoin. That is a new mantra that is making the rounds in the United States. Talk to us a little bit about the rise of gold.
The three important commodities that you need to look at over the next 90 days, 200 and maybe 90 days for rest of the year. Gold, oil, and commodity, which is agricultural commodity, wheat and grains. These three are becoming a choke point around the world. And as these prices increase, there are indications that the preparations for war is afoot. Only these currencies rise because the cash shifts to safe havens. There's nothing that substantiates as to why gold should increase, price should increase. Other thing that is going on in the market, which all of you are, you have several experts who have given different opinions, is effectively the currency or the new currency should be gold and not US dollar. This crescendo is also rising. Why? Because in the event of a war, if there is a strangle on the dollar, then you can strangle lots of things. So when you look at all the saber rattling that is going on in the Russia-Ukraine situation, when you look at all the saber rattling that is going on in China, and when you look at the new emerging partnerships that is happening, when you look at the sanctions that are happening in the global payment systems, which is effectively US and Euro, predominantly 80%, then you are beginning to see some shift in patterns in markets. So this is a high-level overview of what you are seeing in terms of the movement away and money shifting to commodity currencies. We'll touch on grains when we come to Russia, Sriji.
Yes, indeed. And now crude is up to $85 a barrel. So the rise is on. We predicted this because the futures, in future, the crude supply is going to be reducing. So that will definitely reflect on the price of crude at the pump. It's always like that. Future may go up today, the price goes up. Future may go down. It will not go down today. It will go down 1 month from now. Very amazing price elasticity there. Anyway, this is just made in jest. Nobody checks it. There have been many commissions of inquiry in California doing this, but nobody has ever been punished. That's how this works. So people talk about no corruption in the West. That's not true. It just happens in a much scientific level, much higher level. So let's take a quick look at Ukraine's first deputy foreign minister, Emin Zaporova. She's going to be asking on an upcoming visit to India for humanitarian aid. So I guess the war is now ravaging some of the agricultural produce of Ukraine, because that's all in the eastern part of Ukraine, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that and also the southern, the Kharkov region, which is also an important conduit. Also, the Black Sea has been choked. So Ukraine has no alternative if Black Sea is choked. For it to only use land route, which is very complicated. Remember, Ukraine and Russia, along with India, are the three largest producers of grains. Plus, of course, Ukraine is also home to many other fertilizers, and they are the largest producers of inert gases, and the inert gases are used in semiconductor chips. So there's a lot of things that goes directly into Ukraine. But the lady is Madam Zaporova is coming into to India to seek help on aid, but also the energy installations. Remember, that was one of the first things that was targeted by the Russians to take out their energy and infrastructure. So they're coming out to seek help to repair some of the energy installations. India is also the chair for G20 this year till November 2023 or December 2023. So she's coming down to seek support from Modi ji to invite Mr. Zelensky to address the G20 meet.
And now let's turn our attention to Arunachal Pradesh, countering the move of China to rename many Arunachal villages into Chinese names. The Indian Defense Minister is going to be touring the area and is going to be announcing a lot of infrastructural projects. I'm not sure this is the right response, though, and we are going to analyze this at 8 p.m. tonight with Sumit Peer. So do log back into our program. We're going to have a lot of new insights about India's strategy in countering China's fake narrative. So that's a separate subject. But Sridharji, touch upon this, sir. How do you think this makes a difference? I mean, they'll say, oh, good. You're doing all the work for us. Then we can come and occupy this area. I'm just being the devil's advocate here.
Well, I think that historically one needs to look at what was different today to what was before. What was before is that we had a modicum of footprint, no preparedness, which is the reason why India squandered and squandered and squandered, thousands and thousands of, I don't know, acreages of land, and why it was dismissed as a green pasture. And there has been attempted influence of Chinese footprint within India to all these incidents. So clearly, there's a message that is going from, at least from the Indian side, which is to say, okay, you got the stuff. We are also developing on this side. We have got the infrastructure. We got the villages. They're also sending message to the villages. We are not neglected you. Remember how many years the Northeast was neglected by India. Forget everything else in the past. Northeast was neglected in terms of the infrastructure. That has happened in less than 9 years. More recently, in the 5, 6, 7 years, you've seen lots of progress. So I think they're building up the farming, they're building up the water resources, they're building up, they're tapping into the energy ecosystem, but most importantly, they're buying into the goodwill across those 4 or 5 states, along the border, and preparing themselves, which is to say, we are here, the people are with us, and we're continuing to grow. So besides the army infrastructure, the civil infrastructure is also being prepared in the event. Not in the event. I think there is definitely going to be, very similar to Taiwan, there is definitely going to be an India-China war. China never buckles down, especially under this present Emperor Xi. So he probably will meet his Waterloo in the Northeast.
And viewers, you should remember that they now have a bullet train that comes within 45 kilometers of the borderline separating China and India at Arunachal Pradesh. This is a bullet train that you can come from Lhasa, which is the capital of Tibet, to this place. I don't remember, it starts with the letter N and ends with N. Nanjiang or Nanking or something, Nan something. I have talked about this in the past. So that comes within 45 kilometers of the border, which means that for mobilization, they'll be able to do it very quickly. It's a different matter that India will be able to take it down or not. In war, you can never predict what's going to happen. And we also have to keep in mind that Chinese construction, Chinese infrastructure, the less said, the better. So there's going to be a day of reckoning for China, as much of its arms and ammunition will be tested out and see how good they are as they claim to be. So that will be the moment of reckoning. Let's go on to other things.
I just want to make one important observation, Ji, here.
Yes, sir. Yes,
The important observation is many of the soldiers who come are going to fight this battle, they are not from that region. They're from mainland China. This is a difference that the war strategists have pointed out. They're very less motivated. Some of these people who are captured by the Indians and released, they don't even know why they are there, but they are there because of the directive. So this is going to be a very important difference, as this, you can have all the infrastructure, you can have all the equipment, but if you don't have a motivated army which believes in that region and which believes that it belongs to it, then I don't know how they can motivate. This is at least what intelligence and insights that I have heard, which is a very decisive factor as far as India is concerned, Sriji. I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, sir. We also know that along the LAC, China needs to recycle its troops far faster, far more frequently than the Indian side. I believe the numbers are 1 month for China and 1 year for India because of the altitude and the harsh climate. So there are many other things also that are happening, like what Sridharji said, that the people don't even know why they are there. At the same time, all this pressure must be bleeding China dry. I'm hearing some really disastrous stories about how their economy is in a free fall. To get the accurate data, we're going to get Elmer Yuen very shortly. He'll give the insights from the other side, looking at what is happening inside China. So stay tuned for that one. Will happen in the next couple of days. Let's take a quick look at the South Korean foreign minister's visit to India. Sridharji, South Korea is becoming more and more closely aligned with India.
Indeed, I think that they have a lot of infrastructure, be it automotive industry, be it the consumer electronics industry, be it the steel industry. Korea has been a very strong partner. The fact that the foreign minister is re-endorsing India to be a very productive and constructive partner, and the capital continues to flow, is an endorsement. I mean, we remember we said, and people had a Japan, India, Korea, very soon Indonesia will be coming, and Singapore. So you can begin to see the Indo-Pacific partnership beginning to line up both within an economic context and in a strategic context.
Viewers, South Korea used to be ruled by Hindu kings, and I was at Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. It's a beautiful museum right opposite the City Hall, and you can go through and visit the objects there. The capital at that point of time was called Indrapuri. I'm not sure if Indrapuri is the same as today's modern day Seoul. Korea as a kingdom perhaps had more parts of not just North Korea, but even some into mainland China, and it is believed that a Tamil princess was married into that family. And when she went to Korea, she actually set about defining some words for to be added into the Korean language. The most important being father and mother, which is appa and amma, which is what it is in Tamil. So it's a very interesting thing. If you were watching a Korean web series on Netflix or Amazon Prime, you'll be sure to pick up all these small nuances where they address the children address their parents by appa and amma. So there is a lot of cultural connects. In fact, I think Korean prince, there is a royalty there, and they claim their lineage back to Lord Rama, isn't it, Sridharji? She was there at Ayodhya recently.
That's correct. Yes, I think she was. In fact, there's a princess from Ayodhya who got married in. They came in the dream, and they came and they met, and the princess was married into the family, and hence there is this significant historic connection between Korea and going back to the Treta Yuga in India.
So, next question to you, sir. A 45-year-old Israeli Arab rams a van into tourists vacationing on a beach off of Tel Aviv. One Italian tourist is dead, several injured. Sir, why doesn't the loudmouths of the squad ask these questions of their constituents that you cannot kill innocent tourists in a third place, sir?
I think first and foremost, I think in DGI we have been covering the flash points around the world. We have been preemptively covering this, and you can see everything lining up as the days progress. Each of these flash points spruce up, and now, of course, we have been covering the Israel, Israel, Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. And you can why this particular person, it is to do with frustrations around what happened in the mosque, and very quickly Israelis put down the demonstrations in the specific mosque, and as a consequence you are seeing some of these interesting or point activities of what you call suicide bombings and terrorist attacks. So this guy tried to ram, and as the van rolled, he tried to get out and he tried to shoot. It was obviously neutralized. All this goes back to Hamas, Hezbollah, as well as the Iranian surrogates instigating. Now, you made a very important point, which is namely, why is the squad not helping or raising this issue? The squad continuing to spew problems, and they are still persisting while this goes on. Agitations with regard to the judicial reforms, there's still protests going on while you have this specific problem. So they're kind of stirring the pot, and they have been anti-Netanyahu or anti the regime there. So this thing will go on, and to some extent, notwithstanding the fact the present Biden administration and Antony Blinken have asked people to tone down the rhetoric and prevail and preserve calm. Remember, there was just before Ramadan, there was also a meet which was attended by Egypt, Jordan, Palestine, Israel, etc. This trouble has kind of spruced up again. So I don't think we are going to expect anything constructive to answer your question, from the progressive Sriji. Their agenda is different.
And I believe Israel refused entry visas to Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib a few years ago. I think that was also during the previous term of Netanyahu, and they don't forget that slight. And so what I'm trying to say here is Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, extreme voices, shrill and they have now new companions like AOC. Ilan Omar has a junior partner now who's also similar, background. I don't know where this country is headed, Sridharji. I mean, I thought people in Congress and Senate were responsible. They made difficult decisions. Right now, all I see is a lot of, partisan bad mouthing.
We don't know who is running United States, Sriji. When we figure it out, we'll let the world know. We don't know.
All right. So, Turkish President Erdogan is talked to his Iranian counterpart, says that Islamic world should unite against Israel. The U.S. military announced Saturday that it had dispatched a nuclear-powered guided missile submarine to the Middle East to help ensure regional maritime security and stability amid increasing tensions with Iran. First, US wanted to do a deal with Iran. Now looks like US is walking back from that. Why is this flip-flopping, sir? Is this again that thing that you said about factions within the Department of State?
Well, there are two things. In DGI, we reported, the George Bush, the carrier, docking around the Middle East, especially around the Bahraini port. Now we are getting a submarine, which is Florida, coming to the Middle East from Europe, from Italy. I think there are two reasons. One is growing tensions and drone attacks that's emanating from Iran. That's the first, to see whether there's any deterrence that is warranted and support that may be required for Israel. So that's the first. And for whatever reasons, the foreign policy disaster that Biden has inflicted on himself, Saudi has gone the opposite. The Fifth Fleet is, the Seventh Fleet is in Japan. The Fifth Fleet is in Bahrain. Remember, they all are supposed to provide support to the Saudi oil infrastructure. So the submarines are supposed to be an augmentative, and it's going to Bahrain to that. Now, it's not just for that. There is also this submarine will provide access and reach should there be a breakout in war in Indo-Pacific South China Sea. So there is some preparation that is going on in conjunction with the saber rattling that's happening around the Taiwan. Now, which faction within the Biden administration is coordinating, running this strategy, we can't say, because there's so many flip-flops that happens within the Biden administration. But at least this is on the move.
Sir, some allege that Blinken is a Soros appointee. How truthful is that, sir?
I can't comment whether he is a Soros appointee, but what I do comment is he comes from the historical legacy of Obama administration.
We'll leave it at that, and let's take a look quickly at what is happening with the Pentagon documents on Ukraine. Looks like US is investigating whether Pentagon documents on Ukraine were leaked. The papers detailing weapon supplies, troop movements, casualty assessments posted online, but may have been altered or used as part of a disinformation campaign. And they are alleging that it was Russia that was behind the leaks. Now, Sridharji, how does this make a difference? I mean, Russia, if it knows the information ahead that US is sending XYZ to Ukraine, why leak it now? Are they trying to embarrass the Biden administration?
They're not only trying to embarrass the Biden administration, they're basically telling them every move that you make, we know what you're doing. It's also an embarrassment to Ukraine, because Ukraine has stood up and said, oh, we got to tighten up. Somehow the information has leaked, and though it may not be correct. For example, one of the pieces of information is there's only 16,000 Russian troops died as opposed to 200,000. There's supposed to be a specific movement of supplies and other kinds of ammunition that is going as an augmentative. Remember, they're still fighting that Bakhmut battle which is in the center, and Ukraine is planning a major offensive. So if this information has fallen in the hands of the Russians, they've just kind of smudged it and presented it as though instead of the original, which is effectively to say, we know it, okay, you are seeing only the smudged version. It is a tremendous embarrassment. It also tells you the holes within the US, Ukraine, NATO walls.
And a last piece of news, we will do this thing and then we'll take on a couple of quick questions and then we'll wrap it up. Sridharji, Russia is now threatening that unless you give us ways to export our products, we are going to start disregarding the UN resolutions. And again, they are also saying that Ukraine's grain supply will also be, disturbed or breached. So this is going to be a big problem coming 3 to 6 months from now, when the next set of grains will be required by all the other countries, sir. This is the grain bowl of the world, Russia and Ukraine.
Commodity, commodity, commodity is the choke point. Oil, gold, grains. You use the three as very potent weapons, in the event of a war or in preparation for a war. Who is the president of the Security Council? Russia. Who sent reconnaissance plane over Black Sea? United States. And so therefore the Russians are saying, if we're going to send these things and create some problems for us, Black Sea is off the tracks as far as the movement of the Ukrainian grains in or out any supplies as far as Ukraine goes. Good luck, Ukraine. You go on the line, and which means they are beginning to apply all points of choke. All is not well. Just as you say, everything, all is not well within China. All is not well within Russia either. All is not well. All you need to do is look at we presented a chart. People may have been dismissive. The amount of Russian oil to China has dramatically come down. So China is also playing the weapon very carefully to see how you can neutralize Russia. Sorry. So therefore, I think that this choke point that they are saying, okay, off the track, is not just a problem for Ukraine, it's a problem for the world. Sriji.
And crime again rears its ugly head across United States. One inventor, Bob Lee, VC entrepreneur, got mugged with a pipe in early hours of the morning in San Francisco, and he died in the hospital. I can tell you, Sridharji, I'm now, I go on the streets. Any place you can find some vacant space, like for example in roundabouts where you have clover leaf patterns where one road merges or connects with another one, you are seeing a lot of tents now. In fact, these probably are actually more US citizens, because I'm also seeing some of them have RVs, some of them have cars. These cars are also parked alongside these tents. So it's essentially people who have been driven out of their homes for whatever reasons. Now, this is just the existing population. And I don't know where the immigrants are being housed. Huge problem, sir. And this is only going to get worse with days and weeks to come.
Two incidents. Michael Lee, who is supposed to be Cash App founder, plus he's a payments guy.
Bob Lee, sir. Bob Lee, Robert Lee.
Bob Lee, sorry, was murdered, stabbed. Close on the heels, later this week, the fire station retired commissioner was also allegedly attacked by homeless, allegedly, because we are living in a liberal state. We don't get the truth. We get alleged. Information is always suppressed. But the rising the crime rate is alarming. It is because we have a compromised mainstream media. We do not get information at all. It's all positive, but the reality is far different as far as the United States is concerned. As the crime begins to spread in New York, Texas, Minnesota, we don't need to talk about Portland, then Seattle, then of course now San Francisco has become one of the big centers. Very unfortunate, but this is what is happening. We also have had more fentanyl deaths in Texas. China says it is not responsible for it, but the drugs are coming as well into the country. So there's multiple points of issues, but in Biden administration and its entourage is focused, seems to be on wrong priorities.
Thank you, sir. And let's take a couple of questions. Request you to keep answers to 1 minute, sir. Thank you so much. Rahul Rathod wants to know Andaman's transshipment port project has potential to create mini Singapore-like economy in Ireland. Your thoughts on it?
Absolutely. I think that's what they're trying to do because it's in a very strategic location. It is again one of the places which is left neglected. Given now India has been building port infrastructure not only within the country, but developing and harnessing storage and shipment capabilities. Clearly, it's a very strategic location. It is right in the heart and access into South China and ASEAN on one side, and then of course it can also be a pivot into Indian Ocean.
Next question, please. Partha wants to know, can KXL be revived under Republican leadership in 2024? Keystone Pipeline, I think.
Correct. Yes. The answer is yes. A lot of things will change if both House and Senate comes into the hands of the Republicans, but President Biden can still veto. To overcome a veto, you need two-thirds, both
Two-thirds.
in Senate, two-thirds in House and Senate to overcome a veto. So you need a president and at least one of the branches, House or Senate, under your control for you to get through the agenda.
Sir, I tell you, Biden himself might reopen Keystone Pipeline. What choice does US have, sir? We have already depleted two-thirds of its strategic petroleum reserve. And you have committed to supply oil to West.
Sir, this is under the assumption that Biden is in charge of United States DG. I'm just somehow not convinced that's the case.
Good point, sir. Next question, please. Last one. Given that Indian yield curve is flattening and RBI's decision to hold a rate hike, do you reckon that India has reached peak rates, interest rates?
Yes, I think right now, based on the latest report that I have seen, State Bank of India produces extraordinarily good research reports. They believe that the rates are where they need to be. They don't believe they need to increase the rates, even if that means that there is a slight bump in US. But the good news for India is US is unlikely, based on the indications that we are getting from the industry, is that we may see a rate cut by the end of the year rather than a rate hike. So I think that India is in a fairly good state in terms of the flattening of the yield curve is concerned.
Well, that brings us to a close of today's episode. We'll be back again next Tuesday. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. If you're on Twitter, then please follow S. Chityala, that is Sridharji's handle, and my handle is SriIR1. And if you're not on Twitter, consider joining Twitter because that's where you get news. We put out 10 stories a day, approximately, give or take, and you will be getting all those things, notifications via Twitter. Thank you very much, Sridharji. Namaskar.
Thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend.